Hello everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful and peaceful day. Today, we're going to share a heartwarming story filled with love, laughter, and family. The very first Mid-Autumn Festival of Tu Tien and Jack's twins, Long An and Phuong Ni. From making handmade lanterns to sweet, funny moments under the full moon, this episode celebrates the joy of togetherness and the magic of simple happiness inside the happy home. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next episodes. And please tell us where you're watching from and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support truly means the world to us. Soft sunlight streamed through the windows of the happy home, warming the kitchen with its golden glow. The air was thick with the buttery sweetness of freshly baked mooncakes and the faint citrus scent of pomelo peel drying on the counter. Outside, birds chirped lazily, as if even they could sense the peace that had finally returned to the house after so many storms. Tu Tien stood by the table, slicing a large pomelo with practiced hands. She wore a light linen apron patterned with little cranes, her hair tied up in a messy bun that still managed to look graceful. "Jack," she called, her voice lilting through the room. "Don't forget the paper and candles. Even if the twins can't walk yet, they still deserve their own lanterns tonight." From the yard came Jack's familiar, cheerful shout. "Already got them, my queen of precision." A moment later, he burst through the doorway, arms overflowing with supplies, bright-colored paper, bamboo sticks, glue, scissors, and even a roll of silver tape. Half the items wobbled dangerously in his grip. Lantern Master Jack reporting for duty. Mrs. Ly, who was stirring syrup for mooncakes by the stove, turned and laughed. "When you were small, I made your first star lantern. It lasted exactly 5 minutes before you turned it into a helicopter." Jack grinned, unbothered. "That was advanced engineering, Mom. You just didn't recognize innovation." Tu Tien raised an eyebrow. "Well, this time the lanterns are for Long An and Phuong Ni. Try not to invent anything that might explode." The twins were in their crib near the window, giggling at the colorful shapes their father was unpacking. Tiny fingers waved in the air as if already reaching for the paper dragons. Jack knelt beside them and spoke in a mock-serious tone. "All right, team. Daddy's making a dragon for Long An, strong, steady, and occasionally drooly, and a phoenix for our little Phuong Ni, graceful, bright, and slightly bossy like her mom." Tu Tien gasped. "Excuse me? Did you just—" Mrs. Ly interrupted with a chuckle. "Children, please, save the teasing for later. We have lanterns to make." They all sat cross-legged on the floor. Paper crinkled, glue stuck to fingers, and laughter filled the air. Jack tried to bend a bamboo stick into a perfect circle, but it snapped. "Oops, modern art?" he said hopefully. Tu Tien burst out laughing, nearly dropping the glue. "That's not a lantern, Jack. That's abstract chaos." When she looked up again, Jack had somehow glued the dragon's tail to the phoenix's body. "What on earth are you doing?" she asked between giggles. "Fusion design," Jack replied proudly. "Dragon and phoenix united, just like us." Mrs. Ly clapped her hands. "A perfect double happiness lantern." The whole house echoed with laughter. Even the twins joined in with tiny babbles, as if approving their parents' teamwork. By noon, the floor was a battlefield of colored scraps. Tu Tien wiped sweat from her forehead, holding up a finished lantern that looked slightly lopsided but full of heart. Jack raised his own creation triumphantly. "Behold, The world's most romantic dragon-phoenix hybrid. Tu Tien examined it. It's unique. Jack grinned. That's another word for perfect. Mrs. Ly set down a tray of tea. You both look like you've been in a paper storm, but the house hasn't been this alive in years. Jack sipped from his cup and smiled. That's because this year isn't just a festival. It's our first one as a family. That afternoon, the 3 generations strolled to the village market. The air was alive with color and sound. The steady drumbeat of lion dancers, the glow of lanterns swaying above, the smell of roasted peanuts and sugar cane. Vendors called out cheerfully, their stalls packed with mooncakes, fruits, and toys that twinkled under the late sunlight. Jack pushed the twins' stroller carefully, his expression equal parts proud father and overcautious driver. Tu Tien walked beside him, one hand on his arm, while Mrs. Ly followed close behind with a basket that seemed to grow heavier with every step. We came for paper, Jack teased. You're leaving with half the market. These are essentials, Mrs. Ly said, pretending to scold him. How can a proper mid-autumn table be without tea, fruit, and that little rabbit figurine? Look, Phuong Ni's already smiling at it. Tu Tien looked down. Indeed, her daughter's eyes were fixed on the ceramic rabbit, a faint smile curling her tiny lips. See? She said softly. Even she knows it's cute. Jack leaned over the stroller. Meanwhile, Long An's staring at the lion dancers. Brave boy. Or maybe he just likes loud noises. Definitely takes after you, Tu Tien replied, curious and impossible to keep still. The family laughed together, blending into the festival crowd. They sampled sesame candy, bought a shiny pomelo for the offering, and stopped every few minutes so strangers could coo over the twins. Every smile, every greeting, felt like another stitch in the fabric of their happy little life. As they headed home, Mrs. Ly said quietly, "The first festival for the twins should be simple. Joy is what matters most." Tu Tien nodded, her eyes glistening in the golden sunset. As long as we're together, it's already perfect. By evening, the yard of the happy home glowed in soft lantern light. Jack and Tu Tien hung their creations along the porch, while Mrs. Ly arranged the offering table with care, mooncakes, fruits, tea, and that gleaming pomelo in the center. The twins sat in their stroller nearby, watching everything with wide eyes. When night finally settled, the full moon rose, round and bright as a silver coin. Its glow brushed the trees, the house, and the little family standing beneath it. Jack crouched beside the lanterns, lighting them one by one. "This dragon's for Long An," he said softly. "Strong, steady, and full of heart." He turned to the phoenix. "And this one's for Phuong Ni, graceful, bright, and the spark that keeps us warm." Tu Tien smiled. "Then I suppose I'm the lucky one who gets to watch them shine." Jack looked up at her. "No, you're the reason they shine." Their eyes met, and for a quiet moment, the whole world seemed to pause. Just them, the moon, and the gentle breathing of their children. Later, they walked together down the village path. The air was cool and filled with distant drums. The twin lanterns swayed softly from the stroller, their light bouncing like tiny suns. Tu Tien hummed an old lullaby her mother used to sing, and Mrs. Ly followed behind, humming along, her face glowing with pride. Then, a flicker. The candle inside Phuong Ni's phoenix lantern sputtered and went out. The little girl blinked once, then her lips quivered. A second later came a small, heartbreaking cry. Tu Tien bent down quickly. "Oh no, sweetheart, don't cry, Mommy's here." But before she could relight the candle, Long An, barely able to sit up, reached across from his stroller. His tiny hand lifted the dragon lantern toward his sister. The golden light spilled across her face, bright and soft, chasing the shadows away. Everyone froze. The crying stopped. The twins looked at each other, the light glowing between them like a bridge of warmth. Tu Tien's eyes filled with tears. She gathered both babies close, whispering through a trembling smile, "Love doesn't need to be taught. It's born with you." Jack's hand rested gently on her shoulder. "We've walked through storms," he said quietly, "and now our children are showing us how to bring light back again." They stood beneath the full moon, 4 silhouettes bathed in silver, a mother, a father, and 2 tiny souls whose love shone brighter than any lantern. The night air was cool and carried the faint scent of jasmine. Above the happy home, the full moon gleamed like a guardian watching over them. The glow from the dragon and phoenix lanterns shimmered softly across the path as the family walked beneath the trees, each step accompanied by laughter and the sound of distant drums from the village square. Tu Tien leaned closer to Jack. "Do you hear that? The lion dance is starting again." Jack nodded, eyes bright. "We should take the twins there next year, when they can walk and chase the lions themselves." Mrs. Loy chuckled behind them. "By then, you'll be chasing them both around. Good luck catching Phuong Ni. I can already tell she'll run faster than the drum beats." Tu Tien laughed. "And Long An will be the one pulling her back, telling her not to climb the stage." They passed by neighbors who waved and wished them happiness. Everyone in the village knew the young couple who had survived the storms, the ones who rebuilt their life, their home, and now walked hand in hand with 2 tiny miracles. When they reached the small bridge overlooking the pond, Jack stopped. The reflection of the moon danced in the water, broken gently by ripples from a soft breeze. He placed the lanterns on the railing, their lights flickering like 2 little hearts beating side by side. Tu Tien rested her chin on her hands, eyes full of wonder. "It feels like the whole world slowed down for tonight." Jack looked at her lovingly. "Maybe it did. Maybe happiness isn't something we chase. Maybe it's what happens when we finally stop running." Mrs. Loy smiled knowingly. "You two sound like poets. But don't forget, poets still need to help carry the basket home." Jack grinned. "Yes, ma'am." They turned back toward the house, but the moment lingered. The moon, the laughter, the fragile beauty of peace after years of storms. Later that night, after the twins had fallen asleep, the house settled into a cozy silence. The lanterns outside still glowed faintly, their light drifting across the window curtains like soft waves. In the living room, Jack and Tu Tien sat side by side on the floor, surrounded by half-eaten mooncakes and paper scraps. Mrs. Loy dozed lightly in her chair nearby, her knitting still in her lap. Tu Tien leaned against Jack's shoulder. "You know," she whispered, "a year ago, I didn't think we'd have a night like this. I was scared the storms had taken everything away." Jack wrapped his arm around her gently. "The storms showed us what really matters. Not the roof, not the land, but this." He gestured toward the small crib beside them. The twins slept peacefully inside, their tiny hands resting together, as if holding on to the same dream. Tu Tien smiled softly. "Sometimes I still can't believe they're real, that we're parents now." Jack chuckled. Tell that to the number of diapers I've changed this week." She laughed quietly. "All right, you win. You've earned the Father of the Year award, but only if you handle tomorrow's bath time." Jack pretended to groan. "Bath time? Again? Last time, Long An splashed half the water onto me." "Maybe he thought you needed it," Tu Tien teased. "Maybe," Jack said with a grin. "But next time, I'm wearing armor." Their quiet laughter mixed with the soft ticking of the clock. Outside, a faint breeze rustled the bamboo wind chime. The peaceful rhythm of the night made everything feel suspended, like time itself had decided to give them a gift. Around midnight, Tu Tien stood up to check on the twins. Long An stirred lightly, then went back to sleep when she whispered a lullaby. Phuong Ni turned toward her brother, tiny fingers brushing his arm as if to make sure he was still there. Tu Tien's heart swelled again with that familiar warmth. She brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face and whispered, "Sleep well, my little phoenix. And you too, my brave dragon." When she turned, Jack was leaning on the doorframe, watching quietly. The soft moonlight caught his smile. "You talk to them even when they're asleep," he said. Tu Tien nodded. "Maybe they can still feel it. The love, the safety. I don't want them to ever doubt it." Jack crossed the room and kissed her forehead. "They never will. Not while you're their mom." She smiled shyly. "And not while you're their dad." They stood there together, the faint glow from the lanterns outside washing over their faces. The house felt alive, not from sound, but from the quiet pulse of love filling every corner. A few days later, the festival decorations came down. The lanterns were carefully wrapped and stored in a wooden box labeled First Mid-Autumn, Dragon and Phoenix. Tu Tien wrote the date on the lid and smiled. So when they grow up, they'll know this was where it all began. Jack watched her, amused. "You're turning into the family historian. Someone has to record all your mistakes for future generations," she joked. "Ah," he said dramatically. "A legacy of glue explosions and artistic disasters." "Exactly," she said, laughing. Mrs. Ly appeared with a tray of tea, shaking her head. "You two laugh now, but when the twins start drawing on the walls, don't say I didn't warn you." Jack winked. "Then we'll just call it creative expression." Tu Tien laughed so hard she almost spilled her cup. The laughter echoed again. The same sound that had filled their home during the storm rebuild, the birth, the naming ceremony, and now the festival. It was the sound that meant they were still here, still together, still happy. That evening, as the sky turned orange, Jack took the twins outside for a little walk in the garden. The air smelled of earth and blooming jasmine. He held them both in his arms, one on each side, pretending to balance their tiny weights. "All right, my little team," he said softly. "Remember this garden. One day you'll run across it, chase butterflies, maybe fall into the mud, and your mom will yell at me for letting you." Tu Tien appeared at the doorway, smiling at the scene. "Talking to yourself again?" Jack looked up. "Nope. Having a serious conversation with my future troublemakers." She laughed. "Then tell them bedtime's in 10 minutes. Jack nodded solemnly. "You heard your commander, kids. 10 minutes. Enjoy your freedom." As the sun set, the twins yawned in unison, that perfect small synchronization only siblings seem to have. Jack handed them back to Tu Tien, who kissed each forehead gently. "Good night, my loves," Mrs. Ly called from the porch. "Don't forget to bring in the laundry before the dew falls." Jack saluted. Yes, General Loy. Tu Tien laughed. If you're the soldier, then who am I? Jack smiled. You're the heart of this home. For a moment, the world felt impossibly right. The sky dimmed into twilight, the first stars appearing like shy guests at a celebration that never truly ended. Tu Tien looked up and whispered, "We've come so far, haven't we?" Jack wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Yes, and the best part is, we're just getting started. The camera slowly panned upward, past the roof of the happy home, past the trees, up toward the night sky. The faint shapes of the dragon and phoenix lanterns, now hanging quietly in the window, glowed one last time as the screen faded to silver light. A gentle voiceover lingered. In every home where laughter and care are shared, happiness grows quietly, not from perfection, but from love. And here, in this little family, that love burns brighter than the moon itself. The happy home, where every festival, every day, and every heart finds its light.